Brought to you by Alman Auctions, the worldwide leader in antique tractor auctions.
One tractor rarely seen in the U.S. is a Field Marshal. This one-cylinder, two-stroke, diesel-powered farm machine was built in England by Marshall & Sons Company between 1945 and 1957. This Series 2 model is owned by the late Dan Magness and his family. A few years ago, we asked Dan to show this tractor to us, and he was excited to tell us about the unusual way you start a Field Marshal. You have to get a spark to a glow plug inside the huge diesel engine. One way to do that involves a 12-gauge shotgun shell.
I'm going to demonstrate how you would go about setting the engine up if you were going to start it using the shotgun method. We'll actually be crank starting it here in a bit, but I wanted to share the method of shotgun starting it. First thing you would do is line up these two arrows, and what that is doing is putting the piston at just past top dead center. So when the charge goes off, it's going to be pushing the piston in the right direction. The next step you need to do is I'm turning a little crank here that is priming the engine with lubricant. And you do that every time before you start, get the bearings and all pre-lubricated. This is a compression release. For shotgun starting, I'm going to put it in the first groove here. That'll open the compression release valve, so the charge from the shell will go through the compression release into the engine. It'll make one revolution and the compression release will kick off, and the engine should fire then. Now, before you can fire the engine, you first need to load your glow plug. And you'll see better when we crank start it, but this is the glow plug holder, and we'll end up rolling up paper, lighting it on fire, screwing it back into the engine, and the glow plug acts just as a lot of engines today have glow plugs. Of course, they're electric, but this would serve the same function, except it's burning paper. And the final step would be to load your cartridge, blank 12-gauge cartridge, into the chamber here, close it back up, and hit this firing pin with either a hammer or a wrench. The charge would fire off, would go through the compression relief valve into the engine, starting the engine turning over, and hopefully when it came back up on compression the next time, it would fire and continue to run. And generally they do, as long as your glow plug's still burning. Pretty reliable system, but if you don't have the correct ammunition, it's still a little risky, and so we've been very successful crank starting it, so that's what we've always done. All right, now we're going to demonstrate how to start the crank start method. My son's going to be cranking it here. One thing that we've done different, it doesn't matter about lining up the arrows, but we have put the compression release in the fourth groove out. And these grooves are cut on a spiral just like a thread. And what happens is this is cranking over, it works its way over to the end. It'll give Ben 4 revolutions with the compression released. And hopefully after 4 revolutions, he's got enough momentum built up that the engine will, when it kicks down to full compression, it should carry over and fire. Like I say, it's not like cranking a gas engine. It's 300 cubic inches at 17-to-1 compression. So it takes a lot of effort and energy and to get it to crank, but if you know what you're doing, it works out fine. Now we have to do the glow plug method also when you're crank starting, and there's a trick to that too. We've experimented with dozens of kinds of paper. It takes a paper that will burn with just a glow, not an open flame. An open flame, the minute you stick it in the engine, it goes out. So what I'm doing here, we found a specific catalog that works well for us, and I'm waxing the paper up with a candle here. You can't be in a hurry to get one of these things started. Now I'll roll up this paper to fit into the glow plug tube. Okay, now that's going to be our glowing plug of paper. A little breezy here today, so it's not an easy tractor to start in the wind or the rain. You ready on the crank, Ben? So once I have this paper burning pretty good, you'll notice when I take the flame away, most of the flame around the paper is going to go out too, but it does have a nice smoldering red glow to it, which hopefully will continue and be enough to get the engine started. So now it's up to Ben.